if you're tired of being stuck on repeat or starting really strong or burning out or chasing the next hack, this is going to be the video for you because I don't know about you, but for me, you can have willpower, but it always runs out, doesn't it? Or you can have hustle, you can grind, you can be really pushing that boulder up a hill, but after a while it's going to burn you out, doesn't it? Like, have you ever set a New Year's resolution and then all of a sudden you're motivated for a week and then you go right back to the way it was before? So a lot of men, they fall in this trap of like 3 steps forward and then 5, 10, 20 steps back, and they just get stagnant over time. But what I found is when you change your identity at the root, the entire cycle begins to shift and you become unstoppable. Not by force, but by alignment. And one of the key principles I've talked about over the past few days is your external world is really just a mirror of what? Do you remember? Yeah, the external world is really just a mirror of your internal world, of what's going on inside. And so in this video, really, it's time to reclaim the future that's already yours. And this is called unbreakable. So how to end that cycle of endless personal development where you've done all the work, you've done all the tools, you still don't fully feel like you're exactly where you want to be. That's happened to the best of us, myself included. And how to claim the identity that makes motivation and willpower, quite frankly, obsolete. And we're going to help you become the man that your future self demands, because this video is going to explain to you why you've been stuck on repeat for so long, despite knowing better and being sincerely a good man and trying to make it happen, and finally how to shift it permanently. So that's what you're in for today. If you've been following along over the past few days or the past few videos, what we covered was what the main problem that most men face, which is they're sincerely great men. They want to do well. They want to have results in their life, their health, their relationships. They really want to take command of their life, but there's a challenge. And the challenge is, number one, in society, it's like, what does it even mean to be a man these days? You know, there's conditioning. People think it's toxic. Some people think it's like overly people pleasing. And there's all these different conflicting beliefs, aren't there? And if you don't really dig for it, if you don't really look, it's really difficult to find out what true authentic masculinity is. And what you'll find so often is there's so many people out there, and I've been guilty of this in my own life, where there's masks that men wear. And we covered the 3 primary masks that men wear. The nice guy, people pleaser mask, which is performative warmth, performative heart, if you remember. And then number 2, it was that alpha, tough guy, dominant mask. And that's performative what? That's performative power, trying to be domineering. And then number 3 was that fake spiritual, fake socially conscious guy. And that's also a mask too. And that's performative presence, performative connection. Does that make sense? And now what I want to preface is, and I've said this before, that doesn't mean that being a great guy, being warm, that doesn't mean that being a powerful guy, confident guy, and that doesn't mean being a spiritually, socially conscious guy that's into personal development is wrong. But this is like the razor's edge of this. There's some men that I know, and I've worked with some of these men, and we've worked with them to fix this so they can get over this. But when they come in, they value success. But when I ask them, why do they value success? What's it mean to them? They say, well, I value success because I don't want to be a failure. I'm afraid of what failure means, right? And so they're only motivated to get so far out of pain. That's not really the best motivation. But when we shift it and their motivation becomes, I want to succeed because I love growing. I love pushing the edge. That's who I become. I love making progress. It's an entirely different trajectory. Do you see that? So there's nothing wrong with these 3 different archetypes of masculinity, but usually when they're unhealed or they're unhealthy, they're coming from a place of wounding. They're coming from a place of, well, what if I'm not enough? What if I'm not loved? What if I'm taken advantage of? Like, there's fear, anger, sadness, guilt, shame. No More Mr. Nice Guy says the nice guy syndrome is toxic shame. Does that make sense? So these things in and of themselves aren't bad. Being confident, being powerful isn't bad. But being unhealed in that is bad. And so what I've talked about in one of these videos is there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's only unhealed masculinity. As a matter of fact, there's no toxic masculinity, toxic femininity. There's no us versus them. There's just unconsciousness. That's it. There's just unconscious behavior. There's unconscious men out there, and there's unconscious women out there. But if you're truly conscious, if you're conscious as a man, and your partner is also conscious, your authentic gifts of masculine presence and power is not toxic. It's not shameful. It's not domineering. It's actually one of the most greatest gifts of love that you could ever give somebody. for yourself, for your children, for your clients, for your peers, for the people that work for you, the people in your life. Does that make sense? So that's really the first thing that we covered. The second thing that we covered was the king's compass. And we covered that because once you know what masculinity is, it's presence, power, warmth. It's really being conscious, being online, having your heart online, your spine. You have a strong backbone, and also you have a nice pair too. You got some confidence and strength and power behind you. Those are all good things. But you could have this presence, but then not know what to do with it, can't you? And what we found so many times is that there's all of these different definitions of what a man is and what you have to do. You have to provide, you have to protect, you have to be confident, you have to be emotionally intelligent. What does that mean? And if you take all these different people's words for it, it's very confusing, and people, they end up penduluming from nice guy to people pleaser to overly confident to what does it mean, right? And there's not one clear map or roadmap on like this is what to do. And sometimes if you take your partner's word for it, especially if you're in like a little bit of a challenging time in your relationship, you can really take what they say to heart, and you feel like you're failing as a man in all these different categories, right? So what we gave you yesterday was the King's Compass, or in the last video rather, was the King's Compass, which is the 5 domains of masculine leadership, where it finally makes it crystal clear where if you master these areas, this is the path on the right direction. And do you remember what those 5 categories are? They're having a strong vision for yourself in the relationship. They're having emotional leadership, which means you're the calm in the storm, but not to just accept intolerable behavior. But that's where you're so rooted, like your nervous system is the one that is able to respond and not react in a healthy way, right? You're the emotional center of the household, right? You're the rock, you're strong. But that doesn't mean taking a beating either, right? So there's a nuance there. You hear all these people say like, be the calm in the storm, and what they take it to mean is like, oh, well, my woman is just I'm gonna allow her to just completely destroy me or emasculate me. No, that's not what that's about. But it's about being emotionally strong and rooted and grounded as a man, and not letting those emotional storms rock you, and then being able to lead her out of those moments healthily. Does that make sense? We can go much, much deeper on this. But the number 3 is logistical leadership, meaning are you handling the household? Are you actually leading the household? Do you have the energy of ownership? Are you proactive or are you reactive? And the number 4 is energetic leadership or polarity. That's the fun, that's the spontaneity, that's the playfulness, that's that energy, that's that spark between two people, that's that authentic attraction that's so important. And then finally, number 5 is embodied leadership, or I also call it spiritual leadership, but I don't say that in terms of, spiritual meaning religious or like a high concept thing, but spiritual meaning you have a set of principles, a set of rules for yourself, a guideline, a code book. And that means that you are congruent inside and out. Like what you say, your words and your actions align. So it's not just something that you're performing, you're embodying, right? And people can trust your word. That's the foundation of a really solid man. So we covered those 3 masculine archetypes and what to do instead. We covered the 5 domains of masculine leadership. So now you know the presence to embody, and now you know the skills to master. But let me ask you, is it possible that you could do all those things and still fall back into old patterns or not execute on them full time? Is that possible, yes or no? Totally, it's possible. So let me ask you, have you ever looked around and thought, like, why do I keep slipping back into the same patterns, even though I know better? Where, I've read the books, I've done the morning routines, I've gone to these workshops and seminars, and hey, maybe, you're a coach yourself. Maybe you teach people this stuff. Maybe you can recite all this stuff, and you really understand it at a deep level. But there's a gap between knowing what to do and really doing it, isn't there? Or between who you are and who you really can be if you would just let it rip. And sometimes it's easier said than done. And so there's this vicious cycle that men fall into. And that was me. By the way, like, I'm not saying this to be like, hey, this is what you guys are doing. I'm preaching to the choir. Like, this was me. I told you before, I was in a situation where I ended up 80 pounds overweight. I was 6 figures in debt. My marriage collapsed. Everything was brutal for me for a while. And when I was on the way back up, what was happening would be I was trying to recover. I had changed my environment. I had gotten out of the toxic situation. Right? That's step number 1, is getting out of the toxic situation that I was in, because my ex had addiction issues. And so it was better for me to get out at that point. But what I noticed is, like, even though I knew all the stuff to get back on my feet, I was journaling and doing the morning routines, and I had changed the environment, all these things. But I would have one good week and then burn out. Or I'd have one great month and then sabotage again, or have one breakthrough, and I think that would be the one, but then I'd be back to square one again, and it wouldn't actually be the one. And it was like I was trying to stand up in the ocean, and the wave would keep knocking me down, and I felt cursed. Have you ever been there before? I'm like, I thought I got past this already. And then it kept happening so long, like finally I got fed up, and I had this epiphany one night. It was 3 a.m., and I can get into this more in detail some other time, but I realized, I go, I'm trying to change my life. I'm trying to change the circumstances of my life. But the one thing I'm not changing is the man behind it. I'm not changing the man who's at the driver's seat or behind the driver's wheel of his life. And I realize that wherever I go with me. And wherever you go with you, right? Like you can change an environment. Have you ever changed your environment before, or changed the job, or changed the relationship, and it looks good and looks different at first, but then it repeats again? And it's like the pattern keeps coming. Yeah, because you're taking you with you in all of your patterns. Does that make sense? So if you've ever felt like you've tried everything before and nothing sticks, this is the video for you. It's going to show you why that happens. Because it's not your fault the old tactics don't work. You're fixing the surface level without fixing the source. That's going to be very clear in this video. And this isn't just another tip, right? Like, I want to let you know, this is not that. This is the reason why all that other stuff hasn't worked. And I don't say that lightly, because personal development, I love it. I'm a student of it myself. I credit where I am today because of personal development. But the thing is, it only teaches you, it teaches you surface level tricks and strategies and tips sometimes, or change your mindset. And all these things are very, very valid, but they teach it to you individually. And there's so many different things. It's like having all the different tools, but they're not in the toolbox. You don't know what to use when, and they're not aligned, and it's really difficult to make it all work. And sometimes you're fixing the wrong thing, and you don't know that you're even doing that, right? And so once you understand the missing link, I'm going to show you where all of this stuff aligns and why all the other breakthroughs in the past have failed, and it's finally going to click for you here. So why does this matter? What most men try to do is they're working their asses off trying to fix these problems, but they're trying to put band-aids on solutions rather than solving the root cause. And they're fixing the bottom of the pyramid. So what they do is they try to change their habits. They try to change their environment. They try to do new morning routines or new habits, or like, challenges or something like that. Or they download a new tool or a resource, and they go to more seminars. And these are all useful things. But there's a difference between intellectual knowledge and embodiment. And the reason why none of that sticks is because what's driving those patterns is buried even deeper. And they're buried in your old programming, in your unconscious. And what you really need to do is you need to release the unconscious identity underneath all of it. That's what's really holding this all together. Because here's the truth. You don't rise by adding more. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics that says you don't rise to what you want. You always fall to the level of your self-concept. And so you don't rise by adding more things or more tools or more strategies. You rise by releasing what's no longer serving you, what no longer belongs to you. And one of the things I did to turn my life around is I realized that everything in my life was based on conditioning. Every decision I made, every action I took or didn't take, everything was based on conditioning. And I got really relentless with, like, wait a minute. There's so much stuff in my life that is happening by autopilot, by default, that I would have never consciously chosen if I knew better at the time. And I was like, what is authentically mine? And what did I just get by osmosis from somebody else? And I got really, really serious about getting rid of everything that was no longer mine. And so trying to fix your life without shifting your identity at the root, it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, right? Like, it might look productive, but the ship's still sinking. And until you fix the leak, or until you fix where the iceberg hit, everything else is just a distraction. You got to fix the big hole in the boat. And so you're not broken, right? You're just uncalibrated. And what you've been trying to do is you're trying to change your outcomes, but like your outcomes, that's a downstream thing. We got to shift this thing upstream at the origin point, and it all comes back to your identity and your conditioning. Do you follow so far? So I really want to stress this. The work is not about fixing what's broken or adding more skills. It's about remembering what's true for you. It's about remembering who you really are. And you rise, like I said, not by adding more things or by taking more things on, but believe it or not, it's counterintuitive. You rise by releasing what no longer serves you. I like to call it or consider it like a hot air balloon. Have you ever seen a hot air balloon before? Where it's the basket and it's on the ground, it's got anchors on the ground, it's also got sandbags, right? But then it's got the big balloon and a fire right in the middle, and the fire's going, it's trying to lift off the ground, but the anchors hold it down. So you cut the anchors off, and it kind of lifts off a little bit, but it stays low. But then there's more sandbags, right? So what do? You got to cut the sandbags off one by one by one by one. And as the sandbags fall off the hot air balloon, finally there's enough thrust and it starts rising above the ground and it gets into the clouds. Does that make sense? That's what we're doing here with us. We don't want to add more stuff into the basket. You already have all that stuff. We got to cut all the sandbags off that's preventing you from rising. That's the real shift here that we're going to talk about here today. So let's get real about why this actually matters. This is why this is the most important work that you're going to do, because this isn't about learning just some new trick or stacking up more strategies. The real problem here is there's so many men out there that are fighting for inches on the outside. They're banging their head against the external circumstances. Meanwhile, they're sinking on the inside. And here's the problem. Every day you're adjusting your habits, or you're upgrading your routines, or you're trying harder, or you're juggling roles, or hoping something finally clicks or sticks or something, but nothing sticks long term. And really feel this. I know you've experienced this before too. I have. We all have. And it's these old patterns that keep pulling you back, even though you know better. And it's like you ever pour clean water into like a poison well, right? Not that you're all going around putting water into poison wells, but if you pour clean water into a poison well, no amount of clean water makes the drinking water safe. We got to clear out the muck. So here's the consequence of what we're talking about here. If you don't shift this at your source, at your core, at the root cause, and not just get a symptom, but get the real root cause of this, which is your identity. You're going to wake up year after year, a decade later sometimes, wondering, why are you still stuck in the same cycle? And you felt it before. You wouldn't be here if you haven't. You see the man that you could be in your mind, but the mirror never really quite matches. I know this intimately. You get results, but you don't feel fulfilled fully. You hit these moments of hope, and then you slide back into self-sabotage or burnout or fatigue or emptiness. And the worst part is, I've seen this before. I've been involved in this before. People that have come to me have said this before. The world sometimes thinks you're crushing it. The world thinks you're doing like a 10 out of 10 because your life is better than most people, because you're into personal development and you're sincere, right? But inside, there's a part of you that feels like you're an imposter. Because to everybody else, maybe you're crushing it, but to you, you're not. You're like a 6 or a 7, or maybe some people even a 5 compared to what you know you're capable of. There's something, you got your foot on the brake. You want to go forward, but you got your foot on the brake simultaneously. And I want to really drive this point home. Like, imagine another year of repeating the same week on loop, grinding and grinding and grinding, and still missing your edge. Like, just ask yourself honestly, what's it costing you in relationships, or what's it costing your kids? What's that cost to your legacy of not really stepping into who you know you're meant to be? That's that personal hell that men feel so often sometimes, right? When you're alone at night and you're like, I know I'm meant for more, but I'm not. Why am I not living it? And they say like that man's biggest fear isn't there's not like an external fear. Their biggest fear is like you get to the end of your life and realize that you've left it all on the table. I think that's the real fear, is like not living your full potential, but secretly knowing that you held yourself back. I think if you tried it honestly and it didn't work, I think you can forgive yourself for it. But I think the real thing is leaving your potential on the table, and really it's because you held yourself back out of fear. Now, there's a way out. And the solution starts when you stop trying to patch holes on the outside and finally repair what the damage is on the inside. When you align your identity, right? Like, not just your habits, not just the things that you do, but when you really align your purpose and your identity, and then all the way down, everything recalibrates. And there's no more leaking energy. There's no more chasing validation or hustling for self-worth or scraps. You become the man that people feel when your presence walks in the room. And the man that people respect, not even just other people, the man that you respect when you look in the mirror, because you know that you've really stepped up for yourself. And so here's what this promises. When your inner world is finally in sync with your external world, when your inner world is finally in sync with your actions, you don't have to try to be magnetic. You don't have to try to have results anymore. They just happen. Your partner's going to soften into your presence. Your kids are going to trust you, because they know that you're a man of your word. Your team follows your vision. Not just they don't just respect you because of your title, right? You stop grinding and you start really aligning with your results. And life starts to bend to meet you because you stepped into the identity of the you that your future demands. And here's what I want to say, because this is a nuance here. I'm not saying that you're never going to have to put work in again. If you want to lose weight, you got to go to the gym and eat right. If you want to have a great relationship, you got to put effort into it. If you want to start a business, you got to go get clients, right? There's all these things you have to do. But what you're not going to do is, when you're aligned internally and externally, you're not going to start and then sabotage yourself anymore. So your results are going to compound. That's what happened with me, right? That's how I got out of 80 pounds worth of being overweight, 6 figures worth of debt, turning my relationships around, because I got rid of the core pattern inside me that would keep kneecapping myself every time I made progress. I still had to go to the gym. I still had to eat right. I still had to, go do things in business. Do you know what I mean? But I wasn't sabotaging anymore, and my results compounded. That's what this was all about. So my question for you is, can you feel the difference, right? Can you understand the difference, and does this make sense to you? And can you see really what's at stake here if we keep doing it the old way versus if we actually align with what really matters? So what we're going to talk about here today is something called the 7 levels of self-mastery, and this is going to make it crystal clear as to why everything else you've tried in the past maybe hasn't worked and what to do instead. So the real reason why men stay stuck is because they're working on the wrong level. So let's go deep with this. There are 7 levels of self-mastery, and I found this out of pure necessity. I told you at 3 a.m. I had to figure my life out. I had to figure out, why am I not? I know what to do. I know the habits. I have all the resources. I have all the books. I know all this stuff. I even, I'm trying to pump myself up and change my state. Why does this not last? And I reverse engineer what actually turned it around for me. And so there's 7 levels of self-mastery, and every man gets stuck somewhere on this ladder. So listen and check to see where you're living, not just what you know intellectually. So we're going to start at the bottom. Number 7 is your environment. This is your world. This is your arena. Like, who do you wake up next to? What are you breathing in when you walk into your office, right? Is your environment clean, dirty? Does your environment support who you're going to become, or is it draining you? Right? It's like if it's not set up the right way, it's like starting every fight with an arm tied behind your back, right? You want to make sure that your environment supports the man that you're looking to become. But that's the lowest level. The next level is actions, habits, and strategies. And these are your rituals, or the things that you do. Like, so what are you doing every morning when you wake up? What are you doing when you go to bed at night? Like, when are you stressed? Are you doing rituals that are going to make what you want closer to your outcome or further away? Right? Are you on autopilot, or are you being very intentional? Because if you're still held back by your external patterns, no strategy is going to be able to work, right? You have to get rid of those. But so what are your habits? Are they supporting you, or are they holding you back? Then so number 3 is your skills, your resources, your knowledge. This is your skills, your tools, your knowledge, the books that you read, right? This is your bag of tricks, so to speak. And it's what you know in your head or keep in your back pocket, or what you have access to. But listen, resourcefulness trumps the resources you have all the time. So how many tools do you have but maybe never use, right? Or what do you have access to, or what do you need to learn to help you become the next version of you? I think we're all familiar with those first 3 down below. And now the next one above is your emotions. This is your default emotional state. That's why it says predominant emotional state. So are you driven by anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, anxiety? Do you default to numbing out? Or have you trained yourself to return to courage and happiness and joy and aliveness, like even when the storm hits outside? And this is where most good men battle in silence, because they're working with emotions they haven't resolved yet. And I want to get a little bit deeper into this in a moment. And the next level up from emotions is your mindset, which is your beliefs and your values. So what's the unconscious story running your life? I'm always too much. I'm not enough. People don't like me. Your beliefs are like the chains or the jet fuel. So are they lifting you up, or are they locking you in? I always consider personal growth is like you got a chain tied to your ankle and a jetpack on your back. And we're trying to apply the thrust to go forward, but we're still chained down to the ground. And it's like we keep getting yanked back. So we want to be able to cut off all the chains so we can make the forward progress easily. So now the next level up, number 2, is identity. So who are you really? This is who you believe you are. There's mindset and beliefs, but your identity is who you believe you are. It's your strongest held belief about yourself. Not what other people think about you, right? But who do you really believe you are deep down at the core? I'm a leader. I'm an inspiration. I'm an example. I'm a success. I'm an athlete, or I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I'm washed up, right? I'm unlucky. Whatever you attach I am to, you tend to become. And so your identity, that's your thermostat. Psycho-cybernetics, you don't rise to what you're looking for, you fall to the level of your self-concept. Your whole life is trying to keep up with this setting, what you've set your unconscious identity to. And then finally, number 7 is your purpose, which is why are you here? Like, purpose isn't just a cute statement, right? But so many people, they make it their job or their occupation or the thing that they do, or something that can get taken away. Like I was a wrestler. I've known people that are football players. Well, what happens when I am a football player? My purpose is to be a football player. But what happens when that goes away? Who are you? You lose your purpose. You lose your identity. So what is your purpose? To be a leader, inspiration, example, bring out the best in yourself and others. I'm here to be the best man I can be. Like, what's your vision? What's your future? Your purpose is your true north. But so here's how this whole thing stacks. So now you know what all 7 of these things are. Here's how this works. Any man can change temporarily with a new habit or with a new skill, or you can feel better in the moment by changing your environment. But if you're looking to really be like a king, right? Like we talked about the king's compass. If you really want to be a king, what you do is you shift at the level first of what is my purpose, number 1, and number 2, who must I become to be that guy? That's where the shift has to happen. And so every breakdown you've ever had was because you're trying to climb this ladder here while stuck in the basement. So where on this ladder have you just been patching some holes, right, instead of actually raising the foundation? Because what personal development does, they talk about these different areas individually, but never as one whole, never as one holistic model. So what you've been doing most likely is you've been working on maybe 1 or 2 of these areas out of the 7. But this entire pattern, right? This entire thing is what's holding you back. Here's the loop. You see how there's a circle between 5 and 7? What most people do, they want to make a change. They go, I need to get more. I need to do more things. I need to start a morning routine. I need to do a New Year's resolution, right? So they start at 6. I got to do something more, and they get motivated temporarily, and then the motivation dies down, right? So they go, oh, I need to learn more, or I need to go to a seminar or read a book, or I need to understand the strategy. So they get more skills or resources or knowledge, and that works temporarily. But with the best system or the best skills or the best tools, they know what to do, but they don't fully do it, and they sabotage again. So I'm not doing enough. I'm not working hard enough. So they work harder, and then that doesn't. So I need more knowledge, and so they circle 6 and 5 repeatedly, and then they go, I've tried everything. You know what? It's the job. It's the relationship. It's something else. I got to change the what? I got to change the environment. And so they change the environment, and it's better temporarily. But really what happens is it starts to go right back to the way it was before, because you haven't changed the top of this list yet. You haven't changed purpose, identity, your mindset, or your predominant emotional state. And here's what happens. Even if you're big into mindset, your beliefs, and even if you're aware of your beliefs, even if you're aware of like, I need to work on these things, you're working on them consciously. But they don't shift long term, because guess what's above beliefs is your identity. So if you work on consciously trying to shift your mindset, like, no, I've been to therapy, I've been to seminars, I'm trying to change I'm aware of my beliefs. I incant my beliefs. Well, if you're incanting your beliefs, but your identity says I'm a loser or a failure, there's that incongruency between 2 and 3. Does that make sense? The higher levels here have more influence over the lower levels, and they all still do play into each other. Is this starting to make sense here? And so I want to zoom out one level. I want to zoom out one more level. So I want to show you the whole pattern. This is why smart, capable, successful men still feel stuck, because the unconscious identity running the show hasn't changed. But where does that come from? Where does that come from? Is it enough to know these 7 levels? Well, just knowing it's the same problem. Like, you can be aware of it, try to write new 7 levels, and still not make the change long term because it's stuck in your unconscious. And so take a look at this chart here. Your 7 levels of self-mastery, aka let's call it your model of reality. So that stick figure is you. And where the stick figure stands, or right in the middle, that's the present moment. So who you are right now is the sum total of everything that's happened to you in the past, your past conditioning, and also your beliefs about the perceived future. Let me take my face off the screen for a moment so you can see. So who you are now is the sum total of everything that's happened to you in your past and your past conditioning, and also what you perceive about the future. And your past conditioning stacks up over time, and what it does is your past conditioning and also the environment you grew up on determines your habits and your actions and your strategies. And then that determines your skills, your resources, your knowledge, the time, the money. My family was never wealthy. I never had enough time growing up. Like, it affects what you believe about your resourcefulness. And then your predominant emotions, they're all from significant emotional events, like stuff that happened to you when you were younger, or a breakup, right? So it's like anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame. And then what you do is you try to fix your mindset or your beliefs and try to pump yourself up and force your mindset to change, but it doesn't change. And then your identity, like, no, wait a minute, I'm going to be this person someday, but you put that out into the future, not now. And so this entire 7-level stack here becomes just the sum total of your past conditioning. And what ends up happening is this future version of you, you're not living into a future that's unlimited. Many times your vision of the future is just a projection of the past. Or your vision of the future is pushed out in the future, but that's someday. I'm never going to be able to get there, because look at the stick figure. That anchor is tied to its ankle. And so it's trying to get to the future, but it's tied back by the past. Does that make sense? That's what's actually going on in your nervous system. So what do we have to do? The real block here is you're trying to willpower your way through life while carrying years of unconscious programming, emotional baggage, and inherited stories. And so even when life looks good, you feel like something's missing, or you can't sustain momentum long term, or you collapse under pressure. And you start to think, well, maybe it's just who I am, right? So you personalize the identity as like, maybe this is just me. And then it becomes really locked in, right? But that's a lie. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because your nervous system is still loyal to an old identity from the past that you didn't even choose consciously. And so the advantage of this is, now that you have this awareness, you can change it like you can try to change this logically, and the awareness is going to be enough to make a shift here. But what we really want to do is clear the past, clear the anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, clear the significant emotional events, clear whatever trauma is there, if there is any. And then once you take out, like I said, the thorn, you take the thorn out, all of a sudden everything can heal itself. So you don't need more motivation, you need alignment. And because when you do that, that future version of you, that man that you're meant to become, when there's no longer a distortion, you just line up and do what you're meant to be automatically, and you don't sabotage yourself anymore, right? So we're not here to add more stuff. We're here to remove everything that's not you. There's a famous quote by Michelangelo. He created the statue of David. And they go, Michelangelo, how did you create David? And he famously says, well, I just cut away everything that wasn't David. He took the marble and the stone, and he carved away everything that wasn't David. That's what we're here to do. So let's put this into our bodies here for a moment, right? Go ahead, do yourself a favor, put your feet on the floor, take a deep breath in, and close your eyes. And just imagine for a moment, like, what would happen if you released all of the old stories? What if you released all of the old stories? What if you were able to release the anger, the sadness, the fear, the guilt, the shame, the anxiety, anything that you have, the frustration? What if you're able to release the significant emotional events from the past that have told you who you are? What if you were able to get rid of all the conditioning from what the world told you to be, so you could finally be the man that you're really meant to be? And imagine that you've remembered who you are, and you wake up every day and you're on a mission, and you walk into your home and your partner feels your grounded strength and presence, and your kids, if you have them, they feel safe, or your team follows your lead, and you don't have to act like you're this awesome man, right? Because you are. And here's the crazy part, right? Imagine for a moment that it didn't take years and years and years of content or therapy or studying or taking notes, right? It took one decision to finally let go of who you're not. Because one of the biggest myths in personal development is it takes years and years and years and decades to change. No, you change in a moment when you decide to change. When you finally find the root and let it go. When you have that epiphany. You don't need another mindset hack. You don't need more motivation. You don't need to become someone else or someone new. You need to remember who you already are before you were even conditioned. And what would that decision feel like right now? Not in your head, but in your chest and in your gut. What happens if you just decide that I'm done leaking energy, I'm done performing, I'm done waiting, I'm done with all of the conditioning from the past. I want to be the real version of me now, unencumbered by the past and unencumbered by the old stories. And if you're committed to never living based on that past conditioning ever again, however you do it, go ahead and open your eyes now and realize that that decision just changed the course of your destiny right there. Because that happened to me one time at 3 a.m. as I said, I knew I already have potential. I knew who I'm meant to be, but I wasn't living it. But I closed my eyes and I imagined the version of me in the future who already had all these things. And I go, that's the real me. And I go, what if I start to live as that guy now? And I didn't have all the tools and strategies that I have now. Now I do. But what I can tell you is in a very short amount of time, everything began to shift. The weight came off like crazy. My relationships turned around. My money came back. I started making 6 figures in my business again. And most importantly is I feel so aligned on the inside and the outside. And I'm proud of the man that I became. And you deserve that too. So if you haven't opened your eyes yet, open your eyes one more time. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Awesome. So moving forward, right, what we talked about was this video is a part of a series. And we covered, the 3 archetypes of masculinity in the first video, or one of the first videos. We covered the King's Compass in the most previous video. This is the 7 levels of self-mastery. And so if you complete all of the videos and the assignments, right, I'm going to give you a bonus video, which is how to release a lifetime of conditioning in 6 hours or less. And this is the same process I use on myself when I turn my life around. This is the same process I use on every single one of my high-end clients. I do this with them personally. I take them through this, and they get rid of decades and decades and decades of conditioning. I've had people say the 10 years of personal development I've done in the past finally works now because I'm aligned internally. And their relationships turn around, their money turns around. People, no joke, they 5 times their revenue in a matter of months. Not from any extra effort they were doing because they got rid of the blocks internally. Right? Their relationships turn around. They show up as the man they're always meant to be. And so if you want that video, just finish the assignments. I'm going to give you the assignment for this video here in a moment. But in that video, we're going to talk about this sequence that I call, which is like the mission mapping sequence. And you're like, well, what the hell does that mean? It's my process of what we do is we identify where's the root cause of the pain, right? And what that pain or that external block is really teaching you is, if you really look at it, that thing that's blocking you or the pain that you're feeling is a pattern. It's not the first time you felt it. And if you can find the pattern and actually just not react to it in the moment, but find the real pattern, you can go, well, okay, that's telling me something. What's that reflecting about me? And you can reclaim what that's trying to give you, and you can get your power back. And then once you get your power back, you can release the root cause of that, and that's going to allow you to start to live on your purpose, and you find the higher meaning for it. And it transforms everything, and it starts to release some of these pains or these things from the past or these external blocks from your nervous system. And when you start doing that, your identity starts to realign, right? So don't be surprised, though, sometimes. By the way, as you start to do this work, don't be surprised if old patterns start to resurface, maybe a little bit more subtly than before. But what that means is, and I've seen this in every single time that I've made a shift in my life. I'll learn the lesson. I'll feel it in my nervous system. I'll have the embodiment of it, right? I'll finally have the lesson. And then there's a final test where something will happen. It's like, okay, you can choose the way you've chosen before, or you can choose differently. And so as you're releasing these patterns, you might see like, oh, hey, it looks like it's the same thing again. If you get past that, it's like the boss battle in a video game, right? And then it never goes back to the way it was before because you've chosen differently and your brain now knows that you're safe, right? So that if you see that, that's not failure. That's just your next step, just the final test. And so every man has that final test, but most people, they try to avoid it. They try to suppress it. But what we do as leaders is we transmute it and we overcome that and we make it happen. And so what we do, and this has always been my way of life, especially now that I know better, what I do is I try to find what's the external block telling me, and then I transmute it. I take the pain and I find the pattern and I turn that into power. Does that make sense? So now that you've seen the 7 levels of self-mastery, Go ahead, complete your assignment. Let me know that you've completed it. DM me that you've completed it. And I'm going to give you the extra bonus video, which is how to eliminate decades of conditioning in just under 6 hours using this tool that I shared with you, right? But so here's your mission if you choose to accept it, right? So go ahead and comment in the chat below. Number one, what is your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest takeaway from this video, from this series even? And number two, what's your current challenge? What's your biggest current challenge that you're facing? And then journal this. Journal this. Like, you can write it for like for bonus points if you're an overachiever. Write this down in the chat, but really journal this for at least for yourself. Ask yourself, if I were the real me and I owned it and I lived as it, not from the conditioning, but free from the conditioning, and I knew I couldn't fail, who would I be? What would I be doing? How would I show up? What would that mean to the other people in my life if you really knew that you were living as the man that you're meant to be? And then finally, where do you believe that block or limitation came from in the first place? Because awareness is the first step. So go ahead, do those assignments, right? So what's your biggest takeaway and what's your biggest challenge right now? And then at least journal, if not, post this in the chat. If I were the real me, what would be possible? And where do you believe those limitations come from in the first place? And so this is what I do. Like what I just told you about that process, this is what I do in that 3-day VIP transformation I talked about. So at a high level, I take 3 days and we figure out, number one, where do all of the external blocks and pains and where does everything come from in the past, your limiting beliefs, your emotions, and we get the map on what it is. And then we show you, here's your unconscious autopilot on the page. And when you see that, you're like, oh my God, now I know why I'd be 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. It's going to make logical sense to you and you're going to have the epiphany. And even the awareness is enough to start making a change, but we go deeper. Because then on day 2, we eliminate the root cause of every single pattern, every trapped emotion, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, pain, upset, anxiety, everything. All the limiting beliefs, self, others, work, money, finances, career, love, relationship, release all of them. And then number 3, we go, now that on day 3, now that you're free from all that stuff, who's the real you and how do you show up now? And we install that new version of you and make it real. And then we follow up and we put a game plan in place. So now you're no longer pushing a boulder up a hill. What you're doing is you've cleared the blocks. You've cut the chain off from that photo before. You've cut off the chain. Now there's a clear path forward. And so now this is when strategy works. Does that make sense? Because if you're doing strategy and you still have the baggage, it's not going to work. So we clear the baggage, then give you the strategy. Then it all works. So that's how it works. So if you're interested in learning about that now, go ahead, DM me breakthrough or comment breakthrough below, and let's start the conversation. We'll trace the patterns all the way back to what's been holding you back in the first place. We'll diagnose it at the level you've been stuck at, and then we'll map out exactly how to reset that from your purpose to your identity and how you live that all the way down in your every single day action. So it's not a course, right? It's not a bunch of content you got to watch. It's not a bunch of videos or notes you got to take. It's not a year-long thing that you got to do intellectually. This is a full reset from the inside out, and very rapidly you can be who you're really meant to be. So if you want to do that, let's get it. But I told you that's the assignment right here. So do your assignment and let me know when that's done, and I'll give you the bonus video. And one final thing, you're not broken. You're not behind. You're just finally ready for the version of you that's been waiting underneath it all this whole time. And so it's time to just stop performing and start leading. And it's time to recalibrate to that man that's really you inside of you. And it starts now, because what if that version of you that you've been chasing isn't someone you have to become, but it's someone you need to remember? What if your past didn't disqualify you, but actually it was the very thing that if you reclaim it and you reclaim your power, it qualifies you to be a leader? What if everything you've been through was just a training ground for the man that you're meant to be and who you're meant to help and serve? And you don't need 12 weeks, right? You need one decision. You need one breakthrough. And if you wait, another year might pass where you keep on pretending. Or you can start becoming the man that you promised yourself you'd be right now. So go ahead, do your assignment. I'd love to check it out, see where you're at. And if you want to find out more about the 3-day transformation, DM me now and comment breakthrough, and we'll trace it right back to the root cause holding you back. We'll just chat for 15 minutes, no pitch, no fluff, no funny stuff, just clarity. And if it's a good fit, we'll move on and we'll move forward. Or if you'd rather wait until after the bonus video, get a little bit more information and check that out first, that's cool too. Just do the assignment below and then DM me that, or comment below or DM me, hey, I've done the assignments, I've watched the videos, and I'll check to see that it's done. And I'm going to send you that bonus video, which is how to clear decades of conditioning about 6 hours. And whether or not we speak again, like I look forward to speaking with you, but either way, promise yourself this, that you're going to really commit to yourself, commit to something where you're going to stop chasing, Band-Aids, right? Stop chasing who you think you need to become and start remembering who you already are and who you really are on the inside. So that's it for now. It's been a pleasure serving you. I'll talk to you all soon. Go get the bonus video, and I look forward to chatting with you someday soon. Take care. Bye.